United Way of the Plains getting more than $3 million from the federal government to fund the coalition to help end homelessness. Brock Wilson here. Talk about some of the local organizations this money will benefit. Brock?
Over a half dozen organizations, Mike. Today, the United Way held a ceremony to celebrate that grant. I was able to learn why this funding is so important to ending homelessness in our community.
Our community was awarded $3.2 million this year to continue our work in housing people first and pursuing our goal to achieve functional zero homelessness.
The United Way of the Plains president and CEO Pete Nahara says this is the largest award his organization has ever received.
To help address the inflationary financial pressures we are all facing when it comes to rent, utility, and other support services.
The United Way will use the money to support several organizations involved with the Coalition to End Homelessness.
Supporting folks that could be experiencing or getting close to experiencing homelessness.
Steve Dixon is the chairman of the Multi-Agency Center Board. His goal is to use this money to keep people out of the MAC.
Things like rent support, utility support, helping people stay in their homes.
And help people find housing.
Helping people find supportive housing or end-use housing to where they can exit out of the MAC through the programming and find a stable, safe, secure place to live.
Not only does the money support the United Way's goal of ending homelessness,
it also allows us to do the planning and coordination work across the whole system that's necessary for ending homelessness. It's not just one agency that can do it.
It's a community effort.
The reasons for homelessness are endless and far too great for any one organization to tackle on its own.
It allows United Way to serve as that lead role and really make sure the whole community is working on ending homelessness, not just the few providers who get funding.
Today, I also asked the United Way if they're worried about federal cuts impacting their funding. President and CEO Pete Nahara said right now there are no concerns.